All right. Hi, everyone. We are here today with Proper Insurance. My name is Lauren. I'm with Astro, and we're going to do a little partner education on how to handle unwanted guests, including partiers, bed bugs, and more. And I'm going to share my screen here real quickly. If I can. Oh, great.
Oh, it's the tricky part. Find that part.
I know. Sorry, guys. Bear with me. This is not usually my job. All right. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Let's see. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
For whatever reason, it is not allowing me to share my screen, but I think we can just power through this without sharing my screen because it's really just kind of a casual Q&A, and then hopefully people can just chime in the chat as well. Okay, well, I'm going to start just with a brief introduction of Astro. So we were created just to provide short-term rental homeowners just with education, resources, and a professional community for collaboration. We have the astro.org website, which provides weekly blog content, helpful articles, and resources. It also has our business directory where you can look for like vacation rental technology companies or service providers within the industry that can help you or help support your business. And then we also have the networking and resource solutions. So once you're an Astro member, you can join this community where we host our e-learning courses. So we have all of our upcoming events listed. You can communicate with other members, industry professionals. And then there's sorted, organized topics of conversation. So if you have a particular interest in, let's say, revenue management, all of our articles will be categorized and you can dive into those, or insurance, for example. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Justin, and Justin is going to do just an overview of Proper Insurance, and then we'll dive into the Q&A with Nick.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. So yeah, my name is Justin. I'm the Director of Marketing with Proper Insurance. Just a brief, kind of catch up on Proper and how we came to be. So Proper was founded in 2014 with really the rise of Airbnb and Vrbo really expanding their market. Now, the reason the Proper came into existence is simply a matter of a policy not being available to hosts and the short-term rental owners. Back then and back at that point, really all you could do was have a homeowner's policy, which you keep on your home. You could have a landlord policy, or you could get a commercial policy. And looking at the market, Proper just realized that there needs to be something that combines all three, something that's built for short-term rental hosts so that there's no exclusion for business activity, so that you know that your property is covered in addition to commercial level liability for your liability as a host, having guests in your home, and really took that consideration and built essentially the perfect product for this. So we call it a commercial homeowners policy. It is a full replacement for what you have now. It includes protection for the property without exclusion for business, for running the short-term rental, and then also for liability on and off the premise, which extends to everything down the line for even amenities such as bikes and boats and those types of things. So really just looking at the needs of a short-term rental host as far as the policy, and then meeting those needs with the commercial liability component. So that's really how we came from the ground and came up. Now it's been a number of years. We've now written 50,000 policies, and we are the nation's leading short-term rental insurance policy. There really is nothing like Proper Insurance, even in the market still today. So there are some options. You have Airbnb or Vrbo that offer their guarantees with their platform. Those have extreme limitations, and it doesn't solve the problem of your base homeowner's policy still may not respond because of exclusions within those policies. And then we also see other solutions or attempts of solutions, which are really endorsements. So they can say, well, look, your homeowner's policy, we're going to add an endorsement so that you can now rent your property without fear of being denied, having all claims denied because you're running a business. But we have extreme limitations on how much will be covered for theft, on types of liabilities covered, those types of things. So really, it's about separating them all out and then coming together with a policy that covers all the bases, and that's what proper insurance has done. So thanks for having us, Astro, and Lauren, thanks for hosting. So we're excited to kind of get into it today. Today we're going to talk about, as Lauren mentioned, bed bugs being a big one, partiers and just different unruly or unwanted guests, and then also this idea of squatters. This is a very new item on our list and in the insurance world actually altogether. So I will pass it on to Nicholas Massey. Nicholas is our Director of Sales here at Proper Insurance. He is the ultimate expert when it comes to our policy. I mean, we all know that insurance is very deep and a lot of language that it's hard to understand. Well, this guy knows our policy inside and out and can answer any question. So he'll be the go-to today. And yeah, Nick, you want to go ahead and take it?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. As Justin mentioned, I'm our Director of Sales here at Proper Insurance. As he mentioned too, we're in all 50 states. So it doesn't matter where your property is located. We are able to review, look at, and hopefully insure that risk. Much different than, kind of some stuff that's popping up recently in the market with what we called InsurTech. You just jump on a website, buy insurance, and you're good to go. There's no human element of underwriting, reviewing your online listing, addressing potential safety risks and things like that could put you in a position of, not having the right coverage in place, especially when it comes to liability. Now, particular to this conversation, we're going to focus on, unwanted parties, bed bugs, and squatters, and kind of what we can do to either, one, try and prevent that entirely, and two, if it does happen, verifying that you have the right insurance in place to make sure you're protected financially for those repairs. Swing over to that next slide.
Yep. All right, so the first one to cover is just talking about parties. So with the summer pent-up travel demand, we may also see an uptick in parties. So how can I prevent them? How do I handle damage control in the aftermath of one?
Yeah, so step number one in being an insurance person, step number one is to verify your insurance, okay? Almost nobody is advertising, hey, come throw a raging party at my house and do what you want. So these are all unwanted. So step number one is to make sure you have the right insurance policy in place that carries very particular language around property entrustment. The retail insurance marketplace, you could name off any of them that advertise online and during the Super Bowl, but they do not cover property entrustment. And what that means is they do not respond to malicious mischief when you hand the keys over to somebody. So if a vagrant kicks the door down and steals from you, everybody's going to cover that. That's just not excluded in insurance contracts. But if you hand the keys over to somebody and they invite 200 of their best friends over and throw a huge party at your house, you are not going to have the right protection in the retail marketplace unless you're able to pull out or get specified language for entrusting your home over to others. So that's kind of step number one, and something that us at Proper Insurance took into consideration. And there's no exclusion for malicious mischief or theft by a guest in our product. As far as, how do I prevent them? Most of the professionals in the space who've been around for a while recommend that you do not accept local bookings and you do not accept same day bookings. That could be a red flag that somebody is going to be throwing a party at your property. So be on the lookout for those last minute 4th of July bookings from somebody who's in your area, right? Because that could be a red flag of a potential party. Now let's say a party happens. How do I handle damage control? How do I maybe prevent it further? If you don't currently have, maybe look into noise detection devices. There's 2 prominent vendors in the space that Proper Insurance highly recommends. that's noise aware, and Minute as a non-invasive way to detect spikes in decibels at your property, which could be potentially a large party happening, especially if it's spiking at 11 o'clock at night and is a consistent increase in volume. That'll allow you to jump on it quickly, hopefully get the authorities involved, and not have to trigger the potential need for insurance. If you do have one, you're gonna have to call your insurance company. Our experience with these losses with unwanted parties are usually, well over $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in damage caused by the guest. An example that I always use is a client of ours in Washington who had a big party thrown at his place a couple of years ago, ended up with $103,000 in damage. And so based on that example, if you don't have coverage for property entrustment, you're paying for that out of your own pocket. And so as much as we don't like to talk about insurance, or maybe we don't trust insurance, by making sure you have the right policy, you're protected, and that doesn't become an out-of-pocket loss here. So quick recap, if you don't have them, look at investing in some noise monitoring devices for your property. Verify your insurance is going to cover malicious mischief through property entrustment. And if you do have a claim, your next step is to call your insurance company and see if they're going to respond to the damages, as well as make sure you're reporting this stuff to the booking platform, Airbnb, Vrbo, and filing police reports as well.
And I'll jump in there real quick, Nick. To kind of recap what I had said at the beginning of this webinar, when we talk about proper insurance, looking at the market and saying, okay, we need to build a policy that's all inclusive, that covers all of the risks of a short-term rental house, right? And I mentioned that there are policies out there that do cover short-term rentals, but you have to really dig deep. You have to understand the language, take the time to understand what you're covered for and what you're not covered for, because this is one of the items that's often excluded. We have a closed competitive policy. I won't mention names. You can go to our website, and there's actually a video there because a news crew did a report on it, because he found out the hard way that although he had a short-term rental policy, when there was a party, when there were damages, they excluded the entrustment of policies or a property to others. Therefore, they just say it's not my problem. It's it's you entrusted the property to someone else. Therefore, you need to take it up with them. They should be paying for the damages. So that's where proper insurance has looked at it and said, look, we do not exclude entrusting your property to other people. Therefore, we will cover it if the one you handed the keys to is also the one that steals everything out of your home. So correct me if I had anything wrong there, Nick.
No, that's 100% correct. And again, it can be there's policies out there. There's plenty of them in the market with the retail carriers that cover short-term rental. It's branded. It says short-term rental on your policy, but that doesn't mean anything. It's what is in the policy language, and does your limit of insurance respond to X? And that property entrustment exclusion is found in just about every single insurance contract that I've ever looked at over the years, and I've looked at a lot of them. And it also doesn't mean that just because we sell commercial style policy, that other commercial policies would cover that as well. That property entrustment exclusion is something that we had to take the care to look at with the carrier and say, hey, we don't want that to be in our policy because it doesn't make sense that we're not going to cover damage caused by a guest.
Yep. And when Nick says, to verify your policy, I'll mention, that's, go talk to your agent, talk to the one that sold you the policy, ask about these things, ask about property entrustment, and for them to explain or at least detail the language in that contract. And then at the same time, you're welcome to call Proper Insurance. We provide free consultations. We'll go through that policy with you. It's all really confusing, but our agents are trained. They understand how to go through. We'll highlight exactly so you can see where that language exists or doesn't exist within your policy, and then make a decision from there.
I just have a super quick question. So do you guys have maybe specific language that people should put in their listing to help deter parties, or is that a recommendation that you guys provide?
Yeah, and it's something that we look at too on the front end. We require to see an online listing And so that's how we're going to underwrite these homes. We don't do an in-person inspection. We look at how you're advertising and the photos you have on Airbnb, Vrbo, through a property manager, however you might be listing. And one of the things we look for in the house rules is whether or not you offer the home for parties or events. And if you say yes to parties and events, that doesn't mean we're going to say, hey, we're not going to insure your property. We just want to know what you mean. You maybe do a wedding here and there, or want to do that because you have a beautiful couple of acres for people to do a birthday party or a family reunion. So we are going to check on that and ask some questions. I mean, definitely putting up that you don't allow parties and events at your place is one way to do it. But let's remember it's really difficult to vet every single guest fully. And with the instant booking features and things like that, you just don't really ever know who's coming to your property. With the case of our client that I talked about in Washington, that was a stolen credit card and a false ID, how they booked the property. And there's checks and balances in place with the listing platforms, but nothing is perfect. Honestly, like a front door camera, you don't want cameras inside your property, but a front door camera works. Obviously, if you see 50 people walking into your house, you got a problem. And again, those noise detection devices, because the unwanted party, you're not going to know at the time of booking if this person is going to throw a raging party at your house or not. And maybe if you're really concerned about this, just you maybe don't want to book your property for peak holidays, New Year's, Halloween, 4th of July. Those are our biggest party weekends and days that we have in the calendar. And maybe those are days you use the property yourself, or maybe you require like a week-long booking to happen, because nobody's going to spend $2,500 to stay at your property for a week for one party, right? They're doing the 1 or 2 night stays, and they're doing the instant booking. And most commonly, from what we have seen, there are people booking the property who are local to your market.
Okay. My other question is, I know we're talking about unwanted partiers, but if you are someone who does have a great event venue, so say you have a wedding here and there, is there a different policy that someone should consider, or what would be kind of the differences for those?
Yeah, great question. So let's say you do 2 or 3 small weddings a year, 50 people, you've got the space for it, and you just let folks do it because it's nice, a little extra boost in revenue. We're not going to be too terribly picky about that. Obviously, unless you're doing like 30 weddings a year, then you're more of an event venue than a vacation rental. But our recommendation is always, anytime you do an event booking, such as a wedding or a family reunion or a corporate retreat, that you require those guests to purchase separate event insurance. So easy to get that stuff. Just a quick Google search of event insurance is going to give you thousands and thousands of returns. And they cost about $75 to $100 per event. So if somebody's doing a little wedding, again, family reunion or something like that, they might have third-party vendors that are going to come. They're renting tables, they're going to have food, they might have alcohol. Those event insurance policies are going to name you, the property owner, as an additional insured on that liability. And it's going to give the guest a policy that if Uncle Larry gets a little too drunk and gets hurt, that they can claim against that policy versus claiming against your homeowner's product that you have on the home. And they're super cheap. They're like $75 to $100. Your guests, I've never heard of any guests being upset about buying them. I've been asked to buy them. They're easy to get, click and buy online, done deal.
Okay. So it would be something that the guest would then take on that cost of insurance. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And they just plug in online, who you are as the property owner, your email, your address of the location, and then they get a 1 day or 2 day certificate of insurance that shows you, the property owner, as additional insured on that event insurance policy.
That is awesome. Good to know. And we did have one question come in. So it says, are there any recommendations for how to qualify guests to determine the likelihood of party issues? Are there specific questions to ask? So I know you addressed, the local thing, but are there any other questions. So if it's not instant book, like what can you ask a guest to?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult. I wish there wasn't like, hey, this is 100% of the time. If this happens, there's a party. Definitely use your intuition as a property owner on it. If something seems off, it probably shouldn't be a booking that you accept. I would definitely say that, require identification, which I believe most of the hosting platforms require. If you have a group of younger folks, let's just say under the age of 25, and there's 6 of them coming to your house for 2 nights, maybe ask them some questions on what they plan on doing, kind of what's going on. I remember a conversation with a client about a week and a half ago about she felt off because a parent was booking her property for 7 18-year-olds. And she said what this parent had mentioned was that her son was getting married, and this was just kind of be their bachelor party getaway. She just didn't feel comfortable because there was a bunch of 18-year-olds. And she had a front door camera, and all I could really recommend to her was just, if they show up boombox and cases of beer, might be having an issue, and you should call the local authorities and begin the process of getting in touch with Airbnb and getting them kicked out of your property, because they're probably up to no good. Is this one of those things you kind of don't know until it starts to happen? There's, like I said, in most of these conferences that we go to and partners that we have, they kind of all say the same thing. The biggest red flag is going to be the same day booking and or the local renter. Like, that person lives in town, but they're renting your property, and they're probably going to throw a party because they don't want to trash their own house, right? So just that's going to be my biggest advice on what to look out for to hopefully prevent unwanted parties from happening.
Awesome. All right, well, let's move on to the next unwanted guest, which is bed bugs. So the question is, how can I quickly recognize that I have bed bugs? And then how can I quickly get rid of them? And then if you just wanted to touch on the liability around that as well.
Yeah. So when it comes to bed bugs, you're not going to know you have them until a guest points out that you might have them, right? So it's not something you're easily going to be able to figure out if you have bed bugs based on just coming in and doing your routine cleaning of the property. Next group of guests comes in, they tell you, hey, I think you have bed bugs. The next step is to call an exterminator. And if that exterminator verifies that you have bed bugs, and you have to go through the process of getting your home treated, which generally would include throwing away just about all of your linens, as well as going through a process of heat treatment at the property to remediate the issue. Heat treatments are typically a 3-week process. Week 1, heat treatment. Week 2, second detection with a second heat treatment. And then week 3 is just for them to come in and see if you still have bed bugs or not and need further treatments to happen. Ways to prevent potential bed bug issues. There's vendors out there that sell bed bug covers for your mattresses. That's a good option. They also sell these little strips that go along the edge of the bedrooms in the house that bed bugs get stuck on, and then they're replaceable. You just peel them up and put new ones down. So that's something to look into. Now, with our policy specifically, this is an item that we've addressed. The market was asking for it a couple of years ago, and so we were first to market with a bed bug policy and some protection in the contract for bed bugs. And now there's a number of other carriers that are duplicating. I don't know exactly what it says, but they're starting to throw some bed bug coverage in there as well. Essentially, what we do, you call us, you have our insurance policy, and say, oh my gosh, this client said I have bed bugs. Okay, you got to call the exterminator and let's get a positive identification of bed bugs. Next step after that, they say, yes, you have bed bugs. Claim process starts rolling. We provide a $0 deductible. with a $15,000 limit of insurance for those treatments to get the bed bugs out. Now, our policy does not pay for replacement of linens. It's a small expense in comparison to how much it costs to get bed bugs out of your home, which is an average expense of anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000, depending on the size of the home. From a liability standpoint, this is another thing you may want to verify in your insurance policy, is that on liability, you don't have an exclusion for infestation. So most all insurance policies are going to exclude infestation from a property coverage standpoint, but some also exclude infestation from a liability perspective. And so now if not only you have a guest say you have bed bugs and you did have bed bugs, they might go to the hospital because they have bed bug bites everywhere. And now we have medical expense and such involved here, and they could be coming after you to pay for that. Again, our policy is not going to have a liability exclusion around bodily injury resulting from bed bugs at your home if that happens.
Okay. So I have a question, and this just could be, I mean, I'm very naive around bed bugs. So how do you get them? And have you noticed that there are specific destinations where it's more prominent or more at risk and people should be more concerned about them?
They happen everywhere. Yeah, I wish I could say like, this is the place where bed bugs happen.
Okay.
No, it's a claim we file about once a week. So
Oh, wow.
It happens a lot. And it could be, the guest picked it up in their travels from somebody at the airport, and their kid has their favorite stuffed animal or blankie, and it was on that. And then they came to your house and now they're in your house, right? It could be somebody who's returning from, a different country, and they're making a pit stop at your place before they get home to visit family, and they picked up bed bugs in their travels. They're kind of everywhere. And so, yeah, there's no specific thing to say like, this is what you need to be looking out for, because that's going to bring bed bugs to your home. You just never know. It's like being pet friendly. You could be a pet friendly property and have no idea that the person who brought their dog has fleas, and now you have fleas in your property, which, as a human, we're not going to really detect or care or mind about them. They're just kind of a nuisance, unlike bed bugs that are, potentially, hazardous from a liability perspective and bodily injury standpoint. So yeah, you just never know. And you're not going to know you have bed bugs, like I said, until your next group of renters come in and say, hey, pretty sure you have bed bugs.
All right.
Well, one last question on that, Nick. So I got bed bugs. Luckily, there's no liability suit. Like they're cool with it. They're not suing me. But I had to remove them. It's cost me $3,000, and I'm out. I can't rent my property for 3 weeks. How does proper address the 3-week gap?
Yeah, so we really pushed to cover that 3-week time span on loss of revenue with our carrier, but you have to negotiate coverage. It's the $15,000 limit on our bed bug coverage also is going to cover 1 week's worth of lost business income within that limit. So we completely understand and realize that it's a 3-week process to get them out of your property. You're going to get 7 days of lost business income if you have them, right? So 3 weeks, I get it. There's 2 weeks that aren't picked up there, but maybe that 7 days is an extra $1,500 or $2,500 in lost income. It's better than not having anything, right? So. And that's what our competitors who are starting to come into the market are mirroring that. We use Lloyd's of London as a carrier, and whatever Lloyd's of London ends up doing, your retail markets are not going to go beyond that. So Lloyd's of London says 15,000, 7 days of lost business income on this product. Those who are duplicating the coverage, that's essentially what they're getting. And I've seen one other product that has no business income protection on the bed bug. So something to think about if you do have that language in your policy that's available to you.
Okay. And you might have said this and I just missed it, but did you say proper will help cover the cost if you have to put that guest in a different accommodation after?
Yeah, that's part of the lost business income protection is extra expense. I mean, think of it in the same situation if your dishwasher went on the fritz and flooded your kitchen. Well, guests are there like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna refund all of your money back. I'm so sorry. And my neighbor has a rental. You guys can move over there and we're just transferring the calendar, whatever. You're still out that money, you had to refund it to them. So that's part of a business income claim, that extra expense of relocation of a guest. So that would all trigger as part of it, and just keep well documented receipts for the claims process.
Okay. Anything else on that one?
I think that's about it. Nobody wants bed bugs.
Let's
We,
stop talking about those.
yeah, they're gross, but they happen, and we have coverage for it.
All right. So the last one that I think we're going to address today is the extended stay guests that just won't leave, the squatters, which I had honestly never even really thought about, but I've seen it pop up just, in the Facebook groups that these homeowners have discussions in. And so this is an interesting topic. So excited to see what you guys have to say about it.
Yeah, so we're
yeah.
really excited about bringing this coverage to market. It's one thing that we always try to do is to innovate in this space. That's why we are who we are. That's why we're still standing. And, we've unfortunately seen competitors drop out of the market. But it really comes down to, we understand and we know what we're doing and we listen to the market. So with the onset of COVID, there's a lot of areas in the US where rental regulations require that you can't rent less than 29 days. And so you have a 29-day stay guest and they all of a sudden claim tenants' rights. I'm not leaving. So you have to go through the legal process of eviction. And our research showed that can cost anywhere from $500 to $5,000, depending on how much the local courts charge for this process. With, you have to get the sheriff involved, you have to get paperwork done, you get a judge involved, you have to go through this whole process. I've never done it myself, so I don't know all of the ins and outs of what evicting somebody takes. But our policy is going to provide you with $5,000 in legal expense, as well as $10,000 in lost business income during that eviction process at a $0 deductible. So when we're talking with, the digital nomad, or you're required to do 29 stays and they claim tenants' rights, we would have that protection available to you in your policy. Now, I do want to say, if you're currently listening to this and you're a proper insurance customer, if your insurance policy was effective prior to April 1st, 2021, that coverage would be available to you upon your policy renewal. So it's not something you can just call in and add. It's not to convolute the whole insurance topic, it is already confusing. But there are certain carriers, when we renewed our insurance contract on April 1st, who are no longer on the program. And we have new ones filling in their spot. And those ones all accept the squatters protection. The prior ones do not. So if you're currently a proper insurance customer with an effective date prior to April 1st, 2021, we can add that to your coverage, but we essentially have to do a cancel rewrite of your insurance policy, which really isn't that big of a deal. We just start a new policy on a new date and there's no lapse in coverage. Or you can just hang tight and it'll be as part of your renewing contract.
So question that I have is, when can someone claim tenant rights? Like, is there a length of stay that you need to be cautious of?
Everywhere is different. I know here in Montana, it's 30 days.
Okay.
I believe California is 30 days. So something to look into in your local municipality on when tenants' rights trigger. There's not a whole lot of markets that I know of in the US, especially, our peak vacation rental markets that require, 29-day or longer stays. So most of us are going to be dealing with the 1 week, 2 week, 3-day type stay. But I mean, same thing goes. They don't leave. I mean, you're going to need protections. In a lot of cases, it's a phone call to the sheriff, and because they can't claim tenants' rights, they get forcibly removed essentially from the sheriff, and you're back to where you're going. Yeah, so just double check locally. Like I said, if you're in Montana, I know for certain. In California, I know for certain. After 30 days, when 30 days hits, they can claim tenants' rights and not leave your property, and you have to go through the appropriate legal channels to get them out.
Sorry, and you may have said this already too, but so say someone does claim tenants' rights, and then you have to go through this new legal process of evicting someone. How long, do you know how long that takes to get that person out typically?
15 to 30 days typically.
Yeah, or longer.
Could be longer, yeah. But 15 to 30 days, but that's also why we put that $10,000 income limit on there in case it took longer than 30.
Yeah. We introduced this coverage. I think the question came up years ago. Actually, back when I was on the sales floor, I remember I had multiple clients that would tell us stories about the tenants they couldn't get out. I had one, I believe she was in Vermont, and she was coming up on 6 months of dealing with the tenant that refused to leave. And that was 3 or 4 years ago. So this has only been kind of heightened due to the COVID situation and all the legal that's come down as a result of it. And that's why we decided to introduce the coverage. So it is another point, as Nick said, where we're trying to innovate, trying to stay on top of what what short-term rental market and what hosts need as far as protection. We saw the need for this, and as far as we know, I mean, we're in the insurance world. We can't find any trace of it, but we're the only ones to ever offer such a coverage for squatters. So we have heard a lot of good feedback so far, and hope that it continues to grow. Not that squatters continue to stay, but that the coverage is appreciated.
Yeah, and it goes back to, like, add to that, I know a common question that we get is like, okay, well, I have a squatter and now they start damaging my property.
Yeah.
Well, we then revert back to your regular coverage outside of this endorsement. You're covered for property entrustment with us. And so that's still a case of property entrustment where you're going to potentially have tens of thousands of dollars in damage via vandalism. So you not only have this endorsement at a $0 deductible for the legal implications of eviction, but also protecting you at your standard property deductible, which most folks go with $1,000 deductible with us, to cover the 10 or 8 or however many thousands of dollars of damage that they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good to know. I watched this, sorry, quick sidebar, but I did see this video. It was like news coverage and it was in Australia, and this man who had this rental home had someone who ended up squatting there, and then she was like a hoarder, and she would just pick up like trash on the road and like just had all of this trash in his yard and was putting up flags all over his property. I mean, it was like a wild thing to watch, but
yeah, no, thank you.
No, thank you. Crazy. So, all right. Well, if there, actually, let me see if there's any questions left from the attendees in the chat. Maybe we can give it another second.
Any other topics you wanted to touch on, Nick? I can't recall if there were extensions.
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, I can never stress enough that you need to verify your insurance. I mean, no offense to your local insurance agent. They may know your town, but I'm sorry, they just do not know this industry. They may insure vacation rentals. They have these different insurance policies that market to vacation rentals, but they don't provide the right coverage. And your insurance agent can tell you anything. They can tell you, oh, don't worry, you're covered. You got this. It says vacation rental right on it. You're fine. Don't worry. You need to get answers from an underwriter. And that underwriter is the one who's going to specifically tell you in writing what is and what is not covered on your contract. We've been fortunate enough for clients to leave reviews expressing that they went through that process. So if you're still hesitant about who we are and what we do and what we're able to accomplish in this space, definitely read through those reviews. You'll find ones where folks are, I've been told for the last 5 years I have coverage for a vacation rental, and then I finally kind of took it up the chain, and it turns out I don't. And the good thing is that they were fortunate enough not to learn the hard way by having a claim denied. That's always the worst thing we hear when we get a phone call from somebody looking to buy insurance, because they just went through this experience where they thought they had protection, but they don't. I want to remind everybody that the residential marketplace of homes, vacation rentals make up roughly 1% of that market. The retail insurance, they're worried about the other 99%. That's what they want to insure. They are not here actively competing and marketing and building insurance policies for the 1% of property owners who engage in short-term rental activity. And this is all we do. This is all we specialize in. Your property is not a vacation rental. We do not want to do business with you. It's not the type of insurance that we sell. So I just can't stress that enough. We get very comfortable with our local agents. Again, nothing against them, but the insurance policies that they are able to sell you just do not appropriately cover the potential risk you have by advertising your asset online.
Yeah. I think, to kind of expand on those specific risks that Nick's talking about. His name's Nick, by the way. I'm not sure why you end up with Justin as your tag as well. I guess that's but anyways, to kind of expand on that, it does, circle back on talking to your agent and verifying your insurance. It comes down to the coverages. It comes down to these specific scenarios that we're talking about: property entrustment, bed bugs, protection, squatters protection, liquor liability coverage. There are all these specific items that we have added essentially to this policy to make it appropriate for a short-term rental. If a company doesn't add them, then they don't exist. They've already reduced and limited those so that the policy is cheaper for you to begin with. And if they don't understand what you're doing, they don't know that you need it. So that's where we took it upon ourselves at Proper to make sure that we touch on all the things that hosts need to make sure that your business is in good hands, essentially. So.
All right, well, awesome. I don't see any other questions. And so, yeah, as always, thank you to the guys at Proper. It was awesome chatting with you. And yeah, this was recorded, so we'll share it in the Astro network, and we'll put it on our website too, so anyone can come back and view it at any time.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks again, guys.
Yep. Till next time. See you.
Bye.
Bye.